Welcome to Slammed, a Boston Celtics podcast where we discuss the Boston Celtics and the rest of the NBA. I'm Meghan Ottolini from WEI, joined from TD Garden by Esteban Bustillos from GBH and Justin Turpin, also of WEI and Odyssey, as always. So you guys, I feel for months and months and months at this point, I have been so desperate to get to the NBA playoffs and with this team. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like the last 6 weeks at least of my life have just been endless or going around in circle draft talking about 21-year-old quarterbacks versus 23-year-old quarterbacks outside of this podcast. So desperate to get here. And then the game that we got today, game one of this Heat Celtics series, is so far from competitive. I was actually before this podcast trying to think of other series that were so uncompetitive involving the Celtics. And even when you had the Celtics on the other side of it, Brad's Bridgie Celtics, they were still in a lot of these series. So I guess I defer to you guys as the guys who were there. This is a game that opened with a 14-0 run from the Celtics. That was after a 9-0 run in which Spoelstra calls timeout, and then they get back out there and the Celtics put up more points. What was it like being in the building for this?
I was thinking about one of my thoughts throughout the game is that this is one of those games that it's only compelling if you're there to see high execution basketball happening in real time. Because if we're watching this on TV and we're not involved with covering the team the way that we are, we were just all right, when do Mavs and Clippers play? It was the Heat, to give them credit, they did cut the lead down pretty close there in the first, and then Sam Hauser was I'll just go and hit 4 straight threes. So I don't think it was a complete lack of competitiveness, but I think that this showed just really what Miami is without Jimmy Butler. It's a big hill for them to climb.
100%. And Megan, you mentioned that run at the beginning, minute and 55 seconds into the game. The Celtics were already up by 9. When Spoelstra took the timeout, Wyc Grousbeck stands up. He's right next to the Celtics bench. He stands up, starts flailing his arms, looking at the crowd, imploring them. It's wow, these guys are locked in from top to bottom. And I feel like that's been the kind of case all year. These guys have been when it's playoff time, we're going to be ready to go. It always comes down to that mindset they always talk about. And they came out right from the start and had that. Tatum on the first play of the game drove baseline, tried to throw down a dunk. And if he did, the roof probably would have blown off the place if Tatum landed that dunk on the first play. But nonetheless, misses, grabs no rebound, kicks it out to Jalen, knocks down a 3, and that was it. They never trailed. And I think the crowd was ready to go from the start, but man, they were dialed in really for all but the first 6-7 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were locked in the entire time.
Yeah, to me, I guess I kind of just want to get through this series, to be honest. Now I'm okay, Celtics in 4. I do feel like anything less than that, if the Heat happen to grind out some kind of game, the Celtics get put in a blender by their so competitive and scrappy zone defense that they break out. I do feel like that'd be a terrible look for the Celtics, but I do think that I think it's going to be 4 games, and it's kind of unfortunate that Miami is in this position. Obviously, this happens from time to time with the injuries with Jimmy Butler, with Terry Rozier. It's just a bummer compared to where they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, where it's they couldn't get this Caleb Martin in 2023. No shots. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it was really a different supporting cast even without Jimmy Butler out there. It was a very different team. And so I didn't know what I expected. I expected that it would be the Celtics obviously winning this first game, but I guess I didn't think that it was going to get up to a 34-point lead just because the Heat have this reputation of being so scrappy. And as you said, Esteban, credit them. Early in the first half, they were hanging around. The zone defense started tripping the Celtics up just a little bit, but then you see the depth from the bench And you just either throw Hauser out there, you throw Pritchard out there. They're trying to target those guys on defense and trying to manipulate something there. And it's just, they're too good. The 7-8 rotation is just, it's too strong to go up against a team like this.
Yeah, and Terp, you asked Mazzulla and Tatum about the bench and how those guys were able to come off in the press conference, right?
Right. Yeah. And they were all over him. And Joe's been defending these guys all year. It does feel like for most of the year, and I guess it's nitpicking when you're looking at a team that wins 64 games, like everyone was always so worried about the bench, but it really hasn't made any sense. Like more oftentimes than not, they've won you games. Like I think at the beginning of the year, the first 10 or so games, they struggled a little bit, but they've proven themselves to be very effective. And honestly, they were one of the big winners today. I think everyone had an idea that the Celtics were going to come out and take care of business by 34-point lead, winning by 20. I don't think people saw that coming. I mean, the Heat, like they're cockroaches. They won't go away. They just they won't die. They're always here, and they always have this playoff black magic. But for Hauser and Pritchard, even Al, to come out and do what they did, that just shows how deep the Celtics are. Like everyone talks about that top 5 or top 6. Like, no, this is a top 8. Like this team is so incredibly deep, and we saw that today.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead, Esteban.
No, I was gonna say you mentioned winners. I think the other sort of winner that I was thinking too is just Drew Holiday and in general what the defense was able to do against Tyler Hero. Because I think coming into today, the thought I had, and a lot of other folks I'm sure had, was like if the Heat were going to be competitive, Tyler Hero had to have a big game, as he did against Chicago in the final playing game. Just almost non-existent today. I think his final numbers: 11 points, 4 for 13 from the field, 3 of 9 from 3. Really the whole first half, almost a complete non-factor for Miami. So I think a lot of credit has to be given to what they were able to do. Their ability to know when to switch, know when to not switch. When he was out there on the perimeter, they're able to turn one of the best shooters in the league to almost a non-factor.
Yeah, and I do think Terp, I saw you tweet out it's a tough day for the anti-3 crowd.
Sure was.
Look, here's the thing is, okay, with this team, yeah, they had overall a great 3-point shooting performance, but Tatum didn't. So I don't even think that this is actually the best that this team can look against this Heat team. I don't know that you can replicate that with Tyler Hero for 3 more games, but I think that they can actually be a lot smoother and a lot more polished offensively going against this team, the more that they get back into the rhythm of seeing that zone that they go to and just searching out the matchups. I mean, there is nothing, again, I don't want to be disrespectful, but there is nothing more crushing than seeing Kristaps Porzingis at the arc and with Tyler Hero in front of him. It's like, what do you do? You know, if you're the Heat and you're caught in that matchup, they search you out like that. That's a nightmare. It's like watching boys basketball in 7th grade when one kid's hit a growth spurt and the other kid is like still waiting on puberty, you know? Like, yeah. I don't want to be disrespectful, but that matchup was disrespectful. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
like, there's nothing you can do.
I think it was Porzingis' first or second bucket. He got switched onto Hero in the paint, and they just thought, and you saw it immediately, like, oh, that's not what you want if you're Miami. So yeah, that matchup is tough. I will say to again sort of talk about one thing that I also did take away from this game that does look good for Miami is just the Celtics really couldn't do too much to stop Bam Adebayo once he was down low. I mean, and there's not really much that anybody in the league can do. He's one of the tougher guys down low.
And that's been the story with the Celtics and Bam for basically going back to the 2020 bubble playoffs, right? Like that's when I think they first exposed that with him.
Right. Given that, I thought again, Bam was like maybe the biggest bright spot for a tough day that Miami had. So if they can find more ways to continue getting him down low, maybe get some more some more looks off of that for guys on the outside. Maybe there's a chance they get one game, maybe two, but we're gonna talk about this really this whole series. If it's reported as it is that Jimmy Butler won't be available for several weeks, this game really showed how much he did, not just as a scorer but as a facilitator. One of the smartest guys in the league, one of the best defenders in the league, and just one of the toughest players in the league. And without that, especially against this Celtics team that has so much talent, the Heat just don't have enough weapons.
And to your point with Bam, I think the Celtics were also living with that. Like, if you can't trade 2 for 3s in the league anymore, you just can't do it. If you're making more threes than the other team, you're going to win. The Celtics only made one more shot than Miami tonight. They won by 20 because they dominated the 3-point line. And so when you're looking at it, it's like if you want to trade 2 for 3, that's fine. Like, if you want to just keep letting Bam shoot the mid-range, that's fine. We'll live with it. I mean, he's going to knock some down, but it's all about that math game. And, I think Joe Mazzulla's really kind of put me on this a little bit, like, more that, like, all right, well, basketball, it does come a lot more into the math, and it's about kind of the numbers, and it does make sense. And resulted in 64 wins for the Celtics this year. So it's working, and they're going to keep letting teams trade 2 for 3, and they're not going to beat the Celtics.
Yeah, I guess the flip side of that, and I don't think this is going to be an issue at all against the Heat in this series, is just, okay, what do they turn to then when the 3 isn't falling for them? Especially if it starts falling on the other side, which is something that we've seen with past iterations of this Jalen, Jason makeup of the Celtics. One thing that I do want to touch on is that period in the fourth quarter when the Heat went on an 18-2 run and really closed the gap from the crazy lead that the Celtics had. And, it never, to me at least, it never ever felt like this game is in peril. They're not going to win this game. But it did start feeling like, okay, is everybody falling asleep at the wheel a little bit here? What did you guys feel in the building there? And what did you make of them at least, letting go of the rope, as Mazzulla and every other hoop head likes to say at this time of year? What did you make of that little stretch of the fourth quarter?
I didn't think to me, I didn't think that would, given the lead that they had, and at the time, I forget the biggest lead they had. I think was 34 today. Was
34,
it 32?
Yeah,
34. And so, to be honest, I was starting to look up what is the Celtics record for largest playoff victory ever. So, given just the size of the deficit, again, it never felt in danger. So maybe, that's just the nature of the game when you're up so high, and the other team, they become desperate and hungry. They hit, Miami was basically running a full court press at times. That sort of thing is almost going to happen. I will say one of the things we have gone back to consistently throughout the show is that, if this is a few years ago, what would this Celtics team have done? If this was like last year, would this team have let this game slip away? It's like a possibility, but I think this shows the growth of where this team has gone, that this never really felt in contention, even with big runs like that. And, Tatum said after the game, like, look, runs are going to happen. We just have to, basically stay our course and get through it. And they did. And so I don't think anybody really felt like nervous, which is probably a good sign of just how far this team has come.
I'm with you. I think the only people that are nervous were the ones that had the Celtics minus 14.5. Those were the only people in the building that were nervous. It just, there was really no concern. And I think part of that's because, like, when you look across that Miami Heat team, like, who is their dog right now? Like, who is somebody that can take over and just win the game? And granted, that can happen with really anybody. We saw that with Dean Wade earlier this year, where he knocks down 8 threes in the fourth quarter. Celtics end up losing. But when you're talking playoff basketball, I just think it's such a different level. Like last year, you saw with Caleb Martin did it, but he had help with Jimmy Butler. Like, they don't have a dog right now that can just take over like that. So I don't think anyone was really concerned. Like, I think if Jimmy was there, I'd been like, all right, like, still, I don't think anyone really thought they were going to blow that lead, but you would have been like, all right, like, let's be alert a little bit. But to your point, Esteban, like I kept saying post game, like, Runs are going to happen. It's a matter of how you control them and how you respond and just stay in the course. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's been a point of emphasis for the Celtics all year long. It's just how they manage runs, how they respond. And I think all in all, they do a good job because it's going to happen. Like, especially in the postseason, you're not going to blow a team out like this. Like, very rarely are you going to see a wire-to-wire victory in the postseason. It simply doesn't happen. It's just the stakes are higher. You can tell right away the intensity was nothing like we've seen this year. So it's just a different game. So I don't think there's any really reason to worry about it unless you have the Celtics on the spread. That's about it.
The one part of the game that I did see is like, oh, maybe like this could happen. Maybe Miami could catch up, was the end of the first quarter where the three wasn't hitting. I think they finished the end of the first, I have it right here. They finished just 33% from beyond the arc to end the first, and so that sort of showed like when the threes aren't hitting, and they were pulling up for a lot of threes towards the end of that period, and Miami was able to cut down the lead to 5. You could see where the negative impact of this team in particular taking so many shots from beyond the arc. That can start to bite you back if you're not hitting them. And that happens. But again, they're able to sort of recollect and go. Hauser has those 4 threes to start off the second quarter, and everything is fine. So, but that was the one part that I sort of circled. Was like, if that happens consistently throughout a game in this series, then Miami, I think they have a chance.
I also thought that was the one time that the zone bothered the Celtics. Like that was it. Just that really that one time. That was it.
And that's where I think it's more like, okay, we do know this. We have seen plenty of this. This isn't so complicated, but it's different when you're watching it on film than, in the room and understanding the concepts than actually getting kind of physically accustomed to it. And that's why I think they'll be even better against that as the game went on, and then as they go through more games with this team. I think probably the hottest subject that could come out of this game happened in the final minutes with the Caleb Martin foul on Jason Tatum. I am curious what your guys' read on this is, because I see a lot of people whose opinions on basketball I really, really respect, who are kind of all over the map in their reaction to what they think the intent was there and what happened. For me, as someone who is not in the building and has just watched the different angles on social media and video and, what they showed on TV, I think to me, it just looked at worst reckless and like he was really out of control. But I don't know that with Caleb Martin's reputation as being, pretty good, pretty solid guy, that I would look at it and say there was intention to hurt a player there. I think people are highly, highly alert about this because it's Tatum. He's the best player on the floor. And when you see somebody get fouled hard like that, and it's the best player on the floor, of course, like the reaction is, holy crap, what are they doing? You can't do that in the playoffs. That's dangerous. But I think it was, to me personally, and I want to hear from you guys, I think it was a guy who looked like he just got kind of out of control.
Yeah, I actually didn't see it because I had already packed up my stuff from my seats to try to get an early spot on the notorious level 9 elevator.
The damn elevator!
Yeah,
it always strikes that way.
Right, because as we know, like I think this happened around a minute left. The game was already done, and so I didn't actually see it happen. But watching the replay, I sort of lean your way of just like, I think. I mean, he is coming in. It's not like he's just blindsiding Tatum without any context. There is a rebound that is in that direction. And again, I know there is a lot of history between these two teams, these franchises. So a lot of people are going to read it one way or the other. But to your point, Mego, like, I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Caleb Martin. If this was like Draymond, maybe this is a different discussion, but it's not.
That would be a very different discussion.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like the league gives him like a Monday flagrant or something like that. To be fair to the Heat, I haven't had a chance to hear their post game responses on what happened. But yeah, Tatum, Porzingis, they weren't really making too big of a deal about it post game. Joe Mazzulla seemed happy about it in his own his specific way of like, yeah, like that's good to have those sort of juices flowing. But nobody got hurt. I don't think this is a big deal.
Anytime you see a hard fall like that, and especially when it revolves a player like Tatum, there's going to be like some sort of questioning around it. And I agree with Mego. Like, I think it was more of like a reckless play. Like, I don't think he intentionally tried to hurt anybody or anything like that. I think he just came in reckless. And, it was a little shady because the timeout was right before that. And I think it was Brian Scalabrine that pointed that out, where they took a timeout right before and then it happened a couple plays later. But I don't necessarily buy into that. Like, the game was well decided at that point, and like, I think it was just a reckless play, and Jalen's reaction kind of sparked a little bit more of it. Like, Tatum got up, just walked around. He walked right back to the free throw line. He knew he was going to shoot. Jaylen Brown was pissed off. Like, I think one of the Heat players tried to help him up, and Jalen got in there and started shoving, and there was really no altercation though. Like, it was just kind of like, there was just words in between. Like, I think like, I think that kind of speaks to how boring the game was, I guess. Like, that was the one part of like that was actually entertaining, is that like there was an altercation at the end. Like, that's like they gave everyone to talk about. So I don't know. I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just a reckless play.
Yeah. So I think we're all on the same page with that. I mean, God, that fall though, like, it's always such a reminder to me. I usually feel this way all the time with football players, even though they're in pads. The way that guys just, hopefully most of the time, kind of bounce back up from a hit, the way that he fell on like his tailbone or lower spine just looked absolutely painful, as somebody who can be klutzy and wipes out, anytime that there's ice on the sidewalk. I just watched that, and the way that he got back up, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I thought that he would maybe even try to milk that for a minute, which again, I think tells you about the nature of the play and whether there was intent there or not. I'll also note that after that whole, like, I guess, altercation feels strong, but the words being exchanged. Then on the other end, he was kind of in Tatum's landing space when he was taking a shot. And just to even make sure that, as he was coming down in the landing space, he kind of gave him this like hug around the waist, just to be like, hey, I'm not trying to knock you over. And Tatum, was like, you're good. And so I don't think that there was any, I know that it was like heated right after, but as you said with the post-game stuff, even the next possession down the floor, it looked like these are guys who are just like, okay, it's a basketball play, so that's going to happen.
Yeah, I would say at most like a flagrant one on Monday morning, but that's about it.
Okay, well, guys, I think as Terp said, not the most entertaining game. I mean, entertaining at some points, like Sam Hauser having 12 points in 7 minutes was fun.
Red Panda had an incredible halftime performance.
Oh, really? Give us that report, please.
Yeah, every time I see her, I am like, I'm not even like joking. I'm like watching through my fingers because it terrifies me. It terrifies me because I'm just like, she is going to fall and break every bone in her body, and it's going to horrify thousands of people. But she is one of the most astounding athletes you can ever see in person. To be honest, it should be impossible, and it's one of the most horrifying things I'll ever watch. Anytime I've had the chance to see it. So shout out Red Panda.
That's like her game day. So I always wonder about her practice process, and not just her, but those types of performers. Like, you see the guy who balances the the ladders.
Oh yeah,
that guy?
Yeah.
And he's
also
like doing
terrifying
crazy stuff with the ladders, and I'm like,
yeah.
How do you just start the process of, okay, I'm going to turn into this skill? Like, I understand that there's been a lot of work to lead up to the point that they're at, but I don't even think I'd like the beginning of it.
No, all of it is I pray for nothing but successful halftime shows for her, because the alternative is too scary for me to comprehend. Shout out Red Panda.
Did you see the push for her to get into the Hall of Fame?
I have seen that.
That is fascinating. She deserves a spot.
That.
She that is game one. Like, you're the number 1 seed. You're the best team in the NBA. You get Red Panda. Like, that's they talk about like being able to rest their starters and earning home court. No, they earned Red Panda is what the Celtics earned.
There you go.
I like that.
There you go. Okay. Well, we have game 2 on Wednesday. I'll be in the building for that. And so we'll have some fun coverage. We also have a guest this week coming up. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to release that episode, but something to look forward to. We love bringing friends on to the pod, and we love that we're in the playoffs, even if it's not the most exciting series. We love that we're here. Thanks for joining me from TD Garden, guys. I know it's been a long day.
Thank you, Megan.
Still early. 1 o'clock tip-offs. Got to love them.
Yeah. Just wait until if they're in the finals, you get that. I don't know if it would be Mountain Time, but the West Coast time for those games.
Rough. It's
wonderful.
Rough.
Oh, it's wonderful. You're out at like, I don't know, like 7 p.m.
Well, if East Coast, it's rough. East Coast is rough. So.
Oh, I'm talking about when you travel out there.
Oh yeah.
Those are fun.
No, you're right. watching when you're that does get rough. That does get to be like 1 a.m. business. Okay. All right. Now that we sufficiently confused all the time zones and TV broadcasts, this has been Slammed. Thank you for listening to us.